Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Let's see, got a bunch of people on already tonight. Uh, Been a busy week trying to get stuff done. I was hoping to find a Carter AFB slash Edelbrock carburetor to finish off the carburetor rebuild series. However, I wasn't able to find one, so we'll have to save that for a time in the future. Hey Chuck, how you doing? Been working on Scott's Vega. Hey Ranch Sense, how you doing? Working on Scott's Oleynik, the vintage race car hauler. Trying to get ready. We're supposed to leave on the 4th of August to go to Louisville for the NSRA, National Street Rod Association. It's the Louisville show is supposed to be their largest show. We've heard that they have close to 12,000 cars at that event. That's what we were told by some locals at LS Fest last year. So Scott and I decided we needed to add it to our schedule for this year. So we're gonna drive up and then we're gonna leave the rig there, fly home, and then fly back up for LS Fest. They're only about an hour and a half away from each other. Some of that has changed. Plans have changed. First of all, I wasn't able to do any work on my on the Vet Hawk, so I don't have a car to take up this year. And obviously, if you guys that have been on the show before, you know that I've been doing an LS swap in Scott's Vega so he can take the Vega up to mainly for LS Fest, but we're going to take it to Louisville also. So that should be good. And we're hoping to make the maiden voyage with the vintage race car hauler, Chevy C60 with the Oleynik race car hauler box on the back of it. Not sure if that's going to make it or not. I've had some issues. After I got the 8.1 big block and Allison transmission swap done in the truck, as soon as we got it running, I had to move it from where I was working on it. So, hey Dave, how you doing? So we ended up taking it to Scott's storage yard, and then went out to the body shop to get the cab repainted and get some rust repaired on the front end. And unfortunately, it was there almost a year. So that kind of put me way behind the eight ball. A couple months ago, I could have got right back on that thing and finished it up, but basically I got it far enough that we could actually drive it and move it. But we don't have any gauges hooked up, no speedometer. The exhaust isn't finished. It goes back 8 feet to the muffler, so it's not loud or anything, but it doesn't go out to the sides of the truck. The truck has side pipes, side boxes. Let me see if I can get. Hey Cole, how you doing? Let me see if I can get a picture of the truck up so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this is an old picture. This is when I actually picked it up in Ohio. So Scott had the cab painted once, but they just put a single stage base on it, and so from sitting out in the sun, the rust came back. So we got a replacement hood. The other door post on the passenger side was rotted out really bad. So they put a whole inner door opening and stuff, and then a new door. And then unfortunately, the body shop decided to start the truck up with from outside the truck with nobody sitting in it, and they didn't quite get it in park, and they bent this door backwards, so they had to put a new door on this side. Big mess. But these boxes down here on the side, these boxes, Scott had them cleaned up at one time. They're steel. Well, they were rotting out, so he cut those all off and had aluminum doors made, which they're not put back on. So we ran out of time, like I said, with there's no doors on either side of the bottom cabinets, and no air conditioning, and Scott wasn't real happy with this step assembly that was on the covering the steel gas tanks, because it's a very small step here. So he was going to replace the fuel tanks with aluminum ones and take these covers off. But during the length of time it was sitting at the body shop, he decided not to do that for whatever reason. But the main thing that I wanted them done for was the fuel tanks are full of rust. So when we took this thing to LS Fest, we've taken it to LS Fest twice now, and the last trip, on the way back, we had to stop twice to fix dirt in the needle and seats. But that was with the stock pickup, which weren't on the bottom of the tank. So when I did the 8.1 swap, which let's see if I got a good picture here. So when I was doing the LS swap, here's a picture of the engine. So you can see this is an EFI. It's kind of like a 02, 03 Chevy 3500 or a workhorse RV. So basically makes the same horsepower and torque as the early Duramaxes. So it's like 350 horsepower and 500 and something foot-pounds of torque. EFI, coil unplugged. Hey Ryan, how you doing? So everybody kind of calls these the big block LSs because they have coils on the valve covers. So anyway, when I was converting it to EFI, I went ahead, and I don't have any. Didn't get a picture of the old fuel system, but I can explain to you what I did. So I took the tanks had drain plugs in them. They were a 1/2-inch NPT ports. So I pulled those out, put 90s on them with the ball valve so you can shut off each tank. Went to a center line under the truck, and that went to the fuel pump, to a filter, 100 micron pre-filter, fuel pump, 10 micron external output post filter, and that went up to the fuel injection. Here's another picture of the truck with the engine in the located in the chassis. I had to build motor mounts and has little shorty headers on it. Anyhow, so I noticed that when Scott purchased this truck, the tanks were supposed to have chemical coating that they do the inside of the tanks. A lot of motorcycles have them and stuff and done. But I noticed when I drove it back from, hey Johnny, how you doing? I noticed when I drove it back from Ohio, when you took the fuel cap off, I didn't see any coating on the filler neck. So I had my doubts whether it was done. Well, after I pulled the bottom drain plugs out and hooked up my lines, I realized they didn't do it. All they must have done was just washed them out. Maybe they didn't do anything. I don't know. But we're getting a lot of rust out of the fuel tanks. So just driving it from Riviera Beach to Lake Worth to Scott's storage yard, it was probably 10 miles. It started plugging the fuel filter up, the pre-filter, and then I cleaned that out and then drove it out to Loxahatchee, which was probably about a 25-mile drive to the body shop, and it was starting to plug up the filter again. Cleaned it out, and of course they moved the truck around while they were working on it and stuff. And so when we picked it up from the body shop, I knew right away that I needed to clean those out immediately. So I did that, and of course was full of rust again. Trying to see if I can get some more pictures here of it. Those are probably the best pictures. Let's see what this one is. That's nothing. So anyhow, I knew I had to do something with the fuel filters and stuff. So I came up with a. The other situation was it had on when you open the driver's door under the bench seat, there was a brass knob that went from one tank to the other tank. That's how you switch tanks. So in my haste to move the truck, I just hooked up the return line from the fuel injection to one of the tanks. Not thinking much about it. Figured I'll address this later. Maybe I'll put an electric switch valve. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with it. But it again plugged up the filters. And by the time we got back from the body shop back to Scott's storage yard, again, it was plugged up. But the other thing that I realized is we were just running it off of one tank, and we actually ran out of fuel in it. Because you got a 45-gallon tank, you put 2 gallons and it barely even wets the bottom of the tank. So we had some issues there, but we finally got it there. But I did realize that the return was going to the passenger side tank, and we're running off the driver's side tank. So that was a fiasco on my point. We need to get that corrected. So what I did was I came up with a new fuel system upgrade. And I didn't get any pictures of this when I was building it. I should have, but I've been kind of thrashing trying to get all this work done so that we can leave on the 4th. Neither vehicle is even ready yet. So what I came up with on this was I decided I'd make a surge tank. So a surge tank is a place where the return, the tank, feeds, and the pump withdrawals all off of one central tank. So this is what I made here. So this tank is 8.5 by 11, 4 inches wide. So it's basically 1 gallon. So this is my inlet, 100 micron coming from the fuel tanks. So again, I've got a ball valve on either tank. So if you just wanted to run one tank, you could just shut the other one off, or open them both up and fill up. You fill one tank up, it's going to gravity feed to the other side. But now this dash 6 on the top is where the return's going to come back. So as the fuel pump is feeding the engine, the return is coming back and trying to refill this tank. So obviously when you're at low engine speeds, almost all of the fuel is going to be returning to the tank. So it should make this tank pretty full, so that when you're in traffic making hard turns and stuff like that, this should keep any surging on the fuel volume, the fuel delivery to the pump, which will cure one problem. The other problem is now you can run one or the other fuel tank or both fuel tanks, and the return is always going to go back to whichever tank you've got connected. So that's not going to be an issue. So I've got another one of these 100 micron filters coming from Holly, and my thought is that I would run 2 100 filters in line in series to catch the rust. Hey Ron, how you doing? And then hopefully that would keep the rust out. And then I've got a spare 10 micron for the out, to, in case, and extra filters for everything. So that was kind of my place, an extra fuel pump. This is the inlet. You can kind of see the depth of the tank there, and the way this back flange is set up, that's so it bolts onto the support brackets that hold the factory gas tank. I didn't have a picture, but that's how I mounted the original fuel pump. Made a plate that went across there, and that way all of this section here is actually a ½ inch below the fuel tank level. So anything that goes in the tank should go into this sump that I built, or reservoir. And there's the outlet pump and 10 micron. So this is what they call 100 gallon per hour fuel filter, and I had one of those on the backside too. But now these the 100 microns are 175 gallon an hour filter, so they're much bigger filter, much bigger surface area. Hopefully catch more of the crap. But that's kind of what I was building for that. There's the top picture. Let me rotate it. Now you can see this would be where the return is going to go. This flange is where it's going to bolt to the bracket holding the tank, and then there's another bracket underneath. So I felt that would be a good fix. However, we don't have all the rust out of the tank, so I'm still kind of concerned about how many times we're going to have to pull over on a 1,000-mile trip to swap out or clean fuel filters. So it's a little sketchy there. I'm not sure exactly how far we're going to go with it. I have to put a power steering pump on it, the one that came with the brackets. Who knows? It could have been in the junkyard or whatever. May have got water in it. It will not fully bleed the air out, so it growls all the time like it's half not working. And the one that I originally got takes a big long as a fill tube and a long dipstick filler cap, and of course it's discontinued. Nobody has one, so I've gotten the shorter standard big block pump that would go on a 3500, and it takes a standard cap and stuff. Tank's a little bit smaller, but it should work fine because we aren't running Hydro Boost. We're only running power steering. And then the other thing is I have to fab up some hoses, which I've got all the fittings to do that, so we have air conditioning. But I did discuss with Scott on Monday that a good backup plan would be to take my dually and my 28-foot enclosed trailer as a backup, because we know that will make it there and back, and we don't have to do any work to it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking we're gonna go to. Although I was getting ready to put the vehicle for sale, and if we do use that to go to Louisville, it's going to end up sitting up there for 3 weeks till we go to LS Fest and bring it back home. But that's kind of what we're planning on doing with the Oleynik. Scott still has some interior panels to put back in. We got a bunch of work to do. Unfortunately, being in body shop jail for as long as it was, it really threw us behind. Before I even started the Vega project, I was hoping to have the truck done, but we didn't even get it back. So that's kind of a backup or a catch up on where we're at with the Oleynik. It's it is what it is. We can only do what we can do. So the other thing, of course, we're working on the Vega, and so I can show you some of the updated pictures on that. I'm getting close. I'll go ahead and start. I'll show you the pictures, and we'll start discussing this. So here's the LS3 525 horse bolted in the car with the motor mounts completed now. Exhaust manifolds and stuff done. We got the proper valve covers on. I'm waiting for a coil bracket for this side. I've got the wires and everything are all ready to go there. I've got the AC compressor mounted on it, even though we're not going to have AC right now. That's a future plan. But I figured we could put the compressor on and do the belt arrangement and get all that ready now, so that when we're ready to put the AC in, we're just doing an under dash AC only unit. So all we have to do is condenser, evaporator, and hoses, and it'll be ready to go. There's a top view. And we have the alternator. The engine he bought came with the AC bracket, and on this side it had the factory GM bracket with the power steering, which this car has no power steering. So I got the ICT billet alternator bracket for this side, and that's a big Corvette 160 amp, I think, or 170 amp alternator. So that's going to be real nice. You see on this side, I've got the coils and stuff mounted up, working on hoses and stuff like that. So a lot of little fine tuning stuff that I got to finish up. Now that the alternator is mounted, I can put the engine bay harness back in the car now. I'll do that tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and, all the factory wiring all had black tape on it. We're going to go ahead and update all the wiring covering to the F6 sleeve that we use on the Holly harnesses. Just makes everything clean up and look nice on it. Here you can see the driver's side a lot better. Got the clutch master mounted now. There's the brackets and coils and all that stuff. So we're all using all stock stuff. As you guys may remember, my buddy Scott likes things to look as if they came from GM. So this will get the LS3 covers on top of the engine. We wanted to have a mechanical fan on the front. That was one of the things Scott really wanted to have done, but with the throttle body in this position, there's just no way that's going to work. So we're going to do dual electric fans. I want to do brushless and run them pulse width modulated off the Holley fuel injection, but we haven't tested any of them yet, and to spend $700 on fans and not know if they're going to fit and or if they're going to be quiet enough, I decided just to put some regular fans on it for right now, just so we can get the cooling system working, and then we can always upgrade that down the road as time allows, especially once we get the AC. And that's this Griffin radiator in this thing. It ran ice cold with the 327 in there. It had a flex fan with no shroud, and the thing never went over 165. So it's a really good radiator. I think if we have any airflow across it, it's gonna be sufficient. And there's the driver's side with the cover on. I do a little trimming back here for the master cylinder, but nothing, and got the fuel line all hooked up and all that. So moving along nicely on that side. There's a switch this way. Our space we have with the wow, sorry about that. Gosh darn. So there's there, we're a little bit more in control. So from the radiator to the water pump pulley, we have 3 inch 600, and then the belt's about another quarter of an inch farther back. So we have a pretty decent amount of room, and of course that's almost centered. So with two 10-inch fans on either side, that should be no problem at all. Use the swivel 45-degree thermostat housing. That lines up with the lower hose, no problem at all. There's a downward look at it, and Scott found this custom hose. I'm not sure exactly what it came from, but with it cut right here, it's going to work perfect for that, and there will be enough room for motor movement. Although with the Corvette motor mounts that are in this thing, I doubt the motor is going to move at all, but that should be fine. I've done stuff like that in the past. And then we just have to use the S hose right here for the upper. So that should be, again, no issue at all. And this is the fly-by-wire throttle pedal. Now, you can use the GM pedal. A lot of Holley makes a lot of different mounting brackets for this to put the drive-by-wire pedal in. They're fairly cheap, but there's two problems that I don't like about, well, one problem and one secondary problem with the GM pedal. The GM pedal is they only have basically one universal pedal that you can use, and typically I find that it's in the way between the pedals and the tunnel and stuff. And the second problem is the rheostat, the TPS switch inside the factory GM one is printed on a piece of porcelain. So if you take the gas pedal and put it in a vise and try to manipulate the pedal at all, you risk damaging the plate. I know, because I've broken 2 of them. Thank God they're only 150 bucks. But that's why I like using this setup. So you have this TPS unit up here from low car, and then they use a spline piece in here, and then they have a multitude, they have probably 20 different pedal assemblies, which it's splined so you can set it in any position you want. And of course it unbolts so you can put it in a vise and S it if you wanted to, or whatever you want to do. This lower pedal is actually for Dave's car. He's already got the matching pedal for the brake and the brake pedal and stuff. I've got all black stuff going in Scott's, but I just want to get the bracket mounted and make sure the placement was good. So I just went ahead and fabricated a bracket here, use the factory bolt triangle, and then the low car piece has 2 3/8 fine thread nuts coming in from the back side. So put spacers in it so the factory bolts would work, and easy peasy, and the pedal works. And you can see here's the mounting piece that holds the splines together. So you can mount this pedal on either side. This piece here, let me see if I can enlarge this without making a mess. So this center piece is part of the pedal, part of the TPS unit, and then this is the pedal, obviously, and it can be mounted on either side. Plus it's splined, and the spline probably has 40 teeth on it, so you can place the angle anywhere you want. You can move the pedal from side to side however you want. So it gives you a lot of mounting deals there, and it just makes it so much easier. I've got them on all of Scott's cars because he is he likes to have a comfortable position in the pedal assembly, and once I showed him that, he loved them, and so we use them all the time. Ryan says I had the same pedal issue on the square body. Yes, yeah. Rent says I like the low car stuff. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, they're proud of this. This pedal assembly, in all total, is probably about $900, but you have endless adjustments, and they make this an anodized black or the silver, and just gives you tons of options, and they work well. So I like stuff that works, and you can, if the pedal isn't comfortable, if I find the pedal comfortable position, and the owner of the car says, you know what, it's not, I like it a little here, a little that, you got the option to be able to move and adjust. With, like I said, the factory ones, first of all, it's a GM pedal. It's not very attractive at all, especially for like Dave's car, where he's got all the low car pedal covers on it already, and then you put this crappy looking plastic pedal in there. And then the other thing is the placement, because it's a pretty big piece. It's actually, I think the pedal is actually from a 5th gen or 6th gen Camaro, so it's a pretty big unit. So like in this little Vega, the electric piece would have to be mounted so far up inside the dash, I don't even know if there'd be room to mount it. So that's why we use this setup here, and I just think it works out real well. Just another angle of the pedal. You can see right now I've got the pedal ratcheted too far down because it's touching the floor. I just where I put it when I was setting up the position. I wanted to make sure that it didn't interfere with the tunnel. So when I put the new pedal in tomorrow, we'll get that all squared away, and I'll show you guys that next week. And there's the passenger side cover on now, so you kind of get an idea of what Scott's vision there is. Even though it does say Corvette, it is going to look fairly like it came from the dealer like that, or the manufacturer like that. You got to kind of put your thought process on there. It's not going to be exact, but you kind of get the drift. If GM were to put this together in their hot rod garage, where I don't know if they still have that, but back in the day they used to build concept cars and stuff like that. That's what we're kind of aiming for, so that if the GM had did this in their concept center, this is how they would do it. So that's kind of what we're envisioning on this whole project. This is what I'm going to do with the air intake. We got this D port, and then we're going to do a 4-inch pipe over here with a filter on the other side. I may have to modify this pipe a little bit to clear the alternator. That's not all said and done yet, and I don't have the hood in place yet. But again, for what Scott's going to use this car for, if I have to reduce the 4-inch charge pipe a little bit for belt clearance, it's not going to be an issue. Wrench Sense says Scott can have 3D printed inserts made to cover Corvette script. You're right. That is a good point. So, and actually another shop that he deals with, they do 3D printing. So that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. So that's something we could work on in the future. Have them put on Vega or something like that. Make some kind of name or something. I don't know. But anyways, that's kind of where we're at with the Corvette slash Vega project at this point. I think it's coming out really nice. I think the upgrades and the, paint in the engine bay was the right choice. As soon as I got the, I was missing the right correct pilot bearing today, so I wasn't able to get the clutch. I wanted to have the clutch and bell housing and with the trans and everything, so we get some undercar pictures. All that'll be here tomorrow morning, so I can get the drivetrain finished tomorrow. I've already, when I was building the mounts with the mock-up engine, I've already got the dry shaft angles already set. That's all done. That's going to be pretty simple. It's all going to be bolted together at this point. I already had the brakes bled on the car. We just got to hook up the clutch slave and bleed the clutch. That'll be done. I didn't get any pictures of the fuel tank, but on the Vegas, the guys, some of the guys on the Facebook groups have gotten Tanks Inc. to make a run of Vega fuel tanks, but one of the problems with these cars are there are no fuel tanks or sending units available for the factory one. Like I said, Tanks Inc. did make a run of 100 tanks, which were all pre-sold. So, before they make another run, they're probably going to have to pre-sell 50 or so of them before they'll do that. Scott built this car many years ago, probably 8-9 years ago. And back then, what the trick was is you cut the spare tire well out and you put a Camaro portion of a Camaro trunk floor in, and then you could put a Camaro fuel tank in the car, 67, 68 tank. So actually it's a 69 tank because it doesn't have the filler neck, or it has a filler neck that comes out behind the license plate. So that's what was already in the car. So I was able to get the Holley drop-in fuel pump assembly with the built-in regulator. So it only has a pressure line with a 60 psi single line going to the front of the car, which the LS3 is already set up for the same setup. There's no return and there's no regulator on that engine. So the fuel system was really simple to hook up. I went ahead and ran all new 3/8 line, only because the original line was going down the passenger side of the car. I needed it on the driver's side, so I just decided to just run all new line, and got that done. If you guys watched the video from when Scott and I drove to Good Guys in Columbus, Ohio a couple years ago, you saw during that video we had to stop and put some fuel line on the vent on the tank, because it was whenever I like when I'm on the highway, I like to fill the tank all the way full, because I figure you're going to get on the highway and run it right back off. So I like to get as much traveling distance as I can get. Well, when that tank was installed, it wasn't something I had done. They just put a short breather on the tank, and it was barely above the height of the tank. So with the exhaust and the heat from driving down the highway, it was just pumping fuel out the vent until it got low enough that it had the expansion room inside the tank. So while I had the tank out, I put a vent line in the filler tube right next to the fill cap, and then I ran a line, 3/8 line around the side of the tank to in front of it, and then I put one of the Tanks Inc. Tank vents, which actually has a check ball. So if liquid comes out, it plugs the tank off, and then when it needs to have a vent and it starts sucking, it'll pull the check ball down, and it's got a screen to keep it up. And so I was able to, it's on the filler tube about an inch above the fuel tank level, and then it goes around the tank, and that inline, that diffuser tank vent is actually about 2 inches above the tank in front of the thing. So we got a long section of line. I think that's going to have that section solved, and I don't think we're going to have any issues with that. So the key is to try to get all the mechanicals done by Friday, and then I'll have all next week to do drivability testing. Obviously, I'm probably going to have to build a shroud for the fans. I'll probably do that on Monday. but at least it'll be able to start and run, and then we'll get the cooling system all wrapped up, and I'll have a week and a half to get all the drivability. But that does take away from time from getting the Oleynik list done. So I'm going to try, but I don't have a great feeling about it. And the second part of that is I don't know if I want to be working on the truck all the way to Louisville. That's just going to make that trip long. It's already going to be a 2-day event anyway, and it's just going to make it super, super long. Scott already has the trip planned out with hotels, so somehow we would have to get to the north side of Atlanta on day one. And if we have to stop 2 or 3 times for fuel filters, I mean, it would put us at the hotel probably at midnight or something. And I don't know if I want to be thrashing on the side of the road with fuel system issues that whole trip. So we'll see how that all goes. I have ended up buying a diesel pusher to replace my truck camper, something I've been working on for a couple months. So I did purchase one. So our original plan was to drive to Louisville, go to the NSRA show, park the truck in a storage lot, fly home, fly back up, drive it down to LS Fest and Bowling Green Beach Bend Raceway Park, which is about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from where we would have the truck parked. Not a big deal. But I believe now I am going to be driving my RV to LS Fest. So we'll have to arrange. I may have to drive up and meet Scott in Louisville and get him back to Bowling Green, and then of course I can put the trailer on my camper, and he can just drive my truck home. So we'll see. We got a little bit of stuff to work out there, but I think that is going to be a much smarter call, being that, knock on wood, my truck should make it there and back without any issues at all, and probably get fairly decent fuel mileage and all the creature comforts of my truck, rather than a truck that is totally unproven to make a big event like that. So we'll see. I haven't given up on it, but if I get it running and get at least 100 miles on it, that'll tell me if it's yay or nay. If I can get that far. If I can't get that far, then it's definitely a nay. But if I can get it that far, then we'll address that. It would be nice to have one car in the back of the truck. That's the whole reason Scott purchased that thing in the first place. So we will see. So that's pretty much the updates on the shop. So my buddy Doug is doing a let's see if I got it. Is doing an engine upgrade on one of our buddies' cars, and it's a 60. I think it's a 68 or 69. I don't remember. Just totally lost it. Camaro. Anyway, it's Camaro. It's a copy of a Yanko. That's what I was trying to spit out. It's a copy of a Yanko SS, and so it's got a 396 in it with a 5-speed manual behind it. It isn't running very good, so he was going to his buddy or our friend Raymond that owns the car. I told him, I said, if you don't know anything about the car, you got to know what cylinder heads are, closed chamber, large chamber, all this kind of stuff. Well, it ended up having open chamber heads on it. So I told him, I said, your best bet is probably just buying an Edelbrock upper package kit. It comes with the heads, a matching camshaft, intake, and it's going to go on. It's going to run good, just real easy. You don't have to do a lot of thinking about it, and you'll have good drivability and stuff. So that's what Doug is in the middle of. And so he's got the heads on it. I went over and degreed the cam for him, and we did a valve to piston clearance just to double check, because being an open chamber, it did have a small pop up in the piston. Edo broken, right? You're right, Johnny. Some of their stuff isn't the greatest, but for this guy, it was just easier just to do this than to try to reinvent the wheel. And they were in a time crunch, so it's easier just to do that. That switches it over to hydraulic roller, so you don't have to worry about camshaft wear or camshaft break-in. And the springs should be matched to everything. Yeah, Wrenchson says just the carbs. Yeah, and like we discussed in the first carb show, if you get a 1406 or 1407 and try to put that on a performance car, you'll find out it doesn't work very good, because that is an emission tuned carburetor and it will run like crap. If you put the Avengers on, they're a lot better, but still crazy. Johnny says, watch too much Vice Grip Garage. But at least the heads and cam are all American made. I don't know if all the valve train components are, but fingers crossed, it's all good stuff. But anyway, so Doug called me up yesterday and was going to try to do a tech show on this, but we're going to have to do a sped up version of it. Excuse me. So Doug's got the heads on it, and if any of you guys know, have had a small block or big block engine apart, you know that the head bolts go into the cooling system. So you have to it's the same thing. But you have to, that the head bolts go in the cooling system. You have to use Teflon paste or tape on the head bolts so that coolant doesn't wick up the threads and leak. Kind of a pain, bad design, but it's just the way they did it back in the day. Ryan said, do I have any experience with the new Edelbrock carb? Only the newest ones I was working on were the Avenger series, which were the performance tuned ones. If they have anything newer than that now, I have not used them, so I cannot speak for that. Supposedly they're supposed to do a lot of R&D and dyno testing and stuff. So hopefully they kind of got their stuff together. Now that they bought comp cams and I believe even they may have even gotten involved with Driven Oil. They're now in Memphis, Tennessee, instead of being out in California. So that kind of makes it a little bit better to get product from them now. It's a Holly style. No, I haven't messed with that. You're right. I do remember seeing something about it, but I haven't done any research on those yet. But I will look into that, and I'll give you some information next week. Anyhow, like I said, I got the cam degreed in for Doug, and we did a valve to piston clearance check, and we had plenty of room, so good to go. So he started putting the motor together, and looking at the cylinder head, the upper head bolt that goes through the where the dowel pin is, and on the big block Chevy, dowel pin is a sleeve, and then there's a drop-in register that holds the dowel, and then the threads are below that. Well, both of those on the second round of torque, the first step of torque is 25, second one's 40. That bolt on both heads would starting to pull the threads at 30 pounds. So he called me up and was asking about a helicoil. He's trying to come up with a repair, and I said, don't do a repair with the helicoil. That's good for something you're not going to have a torque load on. So that's what I was hoping to do a show on today, but I kind of ran in late with the Vega, so I'm just going to go over it briefly, and maybe we'll do more in depth maybe next week. Wrenchsen says, yeah, probably best for the company to leave Cali. Everyone else says, yes, you're right. I wouldn't, and New York now also. You know, those states are just getting crazy. You know, if you are in a business and you're making any kind of money, you're going to pay through the eyes on that. So I didn't get any regular pictures, but we can show you some of this stuff here. Let's go ahead and drop back to the desktop. So here's some pictures of different helicoil setups. The big block is a 7/16 14. So typical thread kit would be something like this. See if I can make this bigger. Maybe not. Now it's going to go. Let me get out of that. So, but what you do here's see if I can. This won't let me zoom. You probably have used a helicoil, or if not, I mean, you can see on the internet. But it's a spring. Let's go back to see if I can get there's a pretty decent picture of it, and it's just a wire spring. It's got this little tab, and you drill the whole strip threads out, tap it to an oversized thread, and it's actually a specific thread pitch that helicoil makes. So you have to have their tap, and then this spring winds in, and then at the end you take a punch and you knock this little tip out, and now you've got a wire in the thread that creates the repair, and it's a decent repair. I just am not a big fan of it if it's something you're going to torque, because it's just a diamond shaped wire or triangle shaped wire on edge to make a thread. So it's very easy to have this well, first of all, when you tap the thread hole to put the helicoil in, it is just barely larger than the original thread. So you haven't really gotten into any new fresh meat, especially on cast iron where you've got corrosion from coolant from the backside. You don't know how thick the deck is anymore. So my feeling is if you're going to torque a bolt with helicoil, it's actually going to stretch and pull the coil back out. So Wrench says, I always wondered if you have to drill to a larger size and tap it out, why even use the helicoil in most cases? Well, the problem is, like on a cylinder head, now you've got to get a cylinder head bolt that's oversized. You could go to a 1/2 inch, but I don't know a 1/2 inch 13 if you're going to get a clean cut on the cast. So I have a better solution. And not to stop, helicoil does make these inserts for spark plugs, but again, they're very thin. And anybody who's worked on Ford modular motors, especially the 3-valve, Ford had a big problem where they put a long reach spark plug in, but only put a 1/2 inch of thread in the cylinder head. So you got a motor that you're supposed to leave the spark plugs in for 100,000 miles. Nobody's ever put any never sees on the spark plug. You pull the spark plugs out, it pulls the threads out. Now you got a ruined cylinder head, and to take it off, it's very labor intensive. So Helicoil has made a kit, and a couple other tool companies have made them. Carlisle makes one that you can actually do the insert with the head on the motor. You're supposed to use a vacuum to vacuum the chips and this stuff. I've done them, it works, but this ring typically, once you pull the spark plug back out, will bring the coil back out with it. So it's not a solid repair in my eyes. So what I prefer to do is use a time cert. Let's see if I can get I don't know if I can get this to open up. Yeah, this will open up. Well, no, it won't. Let's see if I can zoom in. Nope. So way the time cert works, I know this is going to be, well, maybe we can, hey, let me see, maybe I can find a repair here. Nope, I lost the picture. So, the way this works is you drill the drill just like you do with the helicoil, but you drill it to a much larger size, and then they have a little milling tip that actually puts a step in the top of the surface that you're putting it in. For instance, says 3 valve plugs just snap off. Guess I never had the threads pull out. Yeah, they will on some of them, but they will break off too. That's the newer style one that has the sheet metal piece in. The earlier 3 valves were the ones that had half a plug. That was the sheet metal no gap plug was the repair Ford's upgrade for that. And you're right, that tube would get full of carbon and that breaks off in the motor. They do make a kit to pull those out also. I see my wife's in the chat. She waves hi to everybody. But anyway, so this time cert goes in and then you tap the thread. But the good thing about the time cert is it's actually going to a larger thread size. So you're actually completely drilling the old damaged thread area out and going to the next step up. And they make a standard length and a long sleeve. I don't know if I can get pictures of that. Here's a kit that's got the short sleeves. And then they have this tool that you go in, and that tool is triangle shaped, and it swedges the time cert into the head, or into the material, so it works very well. Time cert actually makes head bolt repair kits for like your Ford modulars, any of the aluminum block motors, the North Star Cadillacs. They probably even make one for an LS. And on the see if I can get these are the longer inserts, and that's what I like using on a head bolt. So you're fixing a head bolt on a deck. You don't know how much corrosion's on the inside, so you can put this extra long insert, and now you've got a much more material for the head bolt to lock into, and it will catch all of the threads that is left in the block. Whereas with the short time cert or with a helicoil, you may not be using the entire thickness of the casting. So just a better repair. Here you can see some different ones. The other thing that time cert makes, which let's see if I can. They also make these kits, which they call the big cert. And you can see how thick this is. So, yeah, North Star head gaskets are a nightmare. You are correct, Rents. So here's the secondary thing. Just say that you have a repair and you've got you're repairing somebody else's repair with a helicoil. It's came out. Now you can't repair it because it's already oversized and you can't do anything. Well, helicoil or time cert makes a big cert, which is actually a double oversize. So it actually brings the threads out bigger even than their standard cert, and obviously way bigger than your helicoil would. So it gives you multiple options for repairs. So really good, a good system. If you get into having to do any repair work, this is a really good deal to go. Here's a drawing of the big, this is in metric sizes, but here if you're going with a 14125, the standard cert would be 15.6, so it's a full millimeter oversize, which is almost 50 thousandths. So you're definitely getting into fresh material. And then the big cert opens it all the way up to 18 millimeters. So that's going 4 millimeter oversize, which is giving you 150, almost 160 thousandths more bite. So you can see how the big cert would definitely repair something that has been repaired, and now you're you're kind of in trouble. So unfortunately, Doug is doing this repair at his place, so I don't have any video on it. But I will try to get some imagery on the big cert for next week, and I'm sure there are there's some other stuff out there. There's some other repair kits out there too, so we'll go over all of them. Spark plugs are one that's notorious. Aluminum cylinder heads, you know, you can rip the threads out very easily, especially in a race motor, because you know guys have a problem with using a lot of never sees on the spark plug because you're using the plug for ground, and if you get too much never sees on, they feel it can interfere with the ground signal. So typically what we do is I would put a dash of never sees on like every fourth spark plug, so it just puts a little coating in there, but not enough to break up anything, and it keeps everything working pretty well there. So we'll get a little bit more in depth in there, because this is a really helpful thing for those problem times you get. You know, you're trying to do a repair on your car, and you strip a thread or something, and now you've got a big issue and you got to fix it. What do you try to, you know, what do you get? What's the right repair? I will tell you, if you get a lot of the aftermarket racing cylinder heads that are aluminum, a lot of times, like the valve cover bolts, will have time certs already installed in them, because they know that, you know, you're going to take the valve covers on and off a bunch of times, and it's a way of fixing it before a problem occurs. So they do work very well. A time and place where I needed time certs in the past for the 7/16s, a buddy of mine had a set of Kaufman Pontiac racing cylinder heads, and at the time he wasn't running a stud girdle, and you know, so the Kaufman head is a copy of like a Ram Air 4 head, but in aluminum, and so he's got rocker studs that screw into the aluminum. Well, he's got it on a race car that he's got probably 400 pounds of seat pressure, because it's a big roller cam, and he was having a problem where he was pulling the studs out of the cylinder head, because just not enough support with the rocker stand and the aluminum. And I don't know what kind of aluminum they were made of. I don't know if they're heat treated properly or whatever. So what we did was I put clamped the heads in my milling machine, got the correct angle, and I machined all the rocker stand bolts out and put time certs in all of them. I put the long time cert, and that fixed the problem. Plus, he went ahead and put stud girdle on it, which the stud girdle grabs the top of the poly nuts. So now they're supported by the cylinder head and then supported by each other, because you only have a couple valves that open at a time, and corrected the problem. So you're going to torque the rocker stands into 70 foot-pound, and they torqued in no problem at all when we did the time cert. So I knew that was a quality repair. Ron says NGK advises to not use anti-seize at all on their plug because of the cooling they put on it. It's proper for to not use the never seize. True, but the thing one of the things you'll see, especially in a racing situation where you're pulling the plugs in and out all the time, when you have the correct heat range spark plug, the first 3 threads should oxidize. So that's how you can tell that you have the right heat range plug in your motor. You get a couple good heat cycles on the plugs, drive it for 1,000 miles or what have you, pull the plug out, and the first 3 threads should be blackish colored or discolored, because that's showing that there's a proper amount of heat with the zinc coating. That's the great thing about, or the cadmium plating. Nice thing about the NGK, why most tuners like using this NGK, is because the cadmium burns off at a good temperature, so it works good as giving you an opportunity to see what's going on in the combustion chamber. So it just works really well. So, but like they said, for the cooling effect and also for the grounding effect, that's why I will just put just a DAP, a very, very small dab on one spot and then just run it in, and that'll lubricate enough that you're not affecting the cooling effect and you're not losing the ground on the never messing with the with the spark plug heat range. And the thing is, like on the grudge car, anytime you're running nitrous, or maybe not as much in a turbo or supercharged car, but we are nitrous is a very fast accelerated burn, so you have to read the spark plugs if you want to really be on the cutting edge of your tune-up every run. So our plugs come out every pass we make on the car. So on just a regular race weekend, we'll have the plugs in and out 12 times and go through probably about 10 sets of plugs. So you can see how over the course of 2 or 3 years, the threads are going to wear out in the cylinder head. And then you've got a problem. You got to do some kind of repair. So that's what we do that for. Wrench says, ever mess with clocking plugs? Yes, indexing. So nowadays, you can, a good engine builder will design the piston and the combustion chamber to where that's not a big issue. People looking for every 1/1000th of a horsepower say that indexing is necessary. With the, I believe, and I haven't thoroughly dyno tested this to make true, but I've done testing and believe in the truth of it, and that is that with the amount of electric that the ignition systems make nowadays, especially if you're running a race plug where the strap is not completely over the tip of the electrode, you are going to get just as good a spark no matter what clock position the spark plug is in. The belief used to be is they wanted to have the spark plug gap pointing down at the piston or towards the exhaust valve. The truth of it is, where that all started was back in the day when we didn't have scanners and 3D printers and custom-made combustion chambers and all this stuff. They used to index the spark plug so that the dome piston would not hit the strap when the piston hit TDC. So that was always always an issue. Whenever back in the day when we would work on a performance or race engine that we did not build, we would do that. We would stick spark plugs in there and spin the motor over by hand and pull them back out and see if it closed the gap up on any of them. And then we knew if we needed to index the spark plugs. So that's basically the only good thing about indexing nowadays is for clearance for the piston dome, so you don't close the piston up. Obviously, supercharged or turbocharged motors have lower compression, so that's not going to be as much of an issue unless it's a race engine where you're running methanol, and then of course you're going to run high compression with boost. But what you have to do, and it's kind of a tedious project, is you have to you put a magic marker stripe on your porcelain, pointing at the lined up with the strap, and then you screw the spark plugs in and torque them, and you see where the stripe is. And if the stripe basically was between 11 and 1, then you could make the spark plug work for that hole. To speed that up, different companies make like a hex that you screw the spark plug in, or I've even seen them where they'll have a block with eight pieces in there. And what you would do is you screw a spark plug in each hole, try to get lined up exactly where you wanted it, and then you would take the plug out, screw it into the block, torque it to the same spec, and then you would scribe. If it's one block, you would put a scribe line and then etch what cylinder that was, and that way you could sit at your desk and do chain index spark plugs all for every cylinder, and you wouldn't have to worry about doing it in the car. But that's how you have to start off with a appropriate index point. So the other thing you could do what we would do a lot of times is we would take a case of spark plugs. So a case of spark plugs has 120 plugs in it. So we would take spark plugs out and run them in each hole until we found one that was exactly where we wanted it. And then we could go into the indexer ring and mark it, and or just keep doing that and through the all the plugs that you have until you have some that will not fit. That's where you get into washers. That makes a whole nother thing. You still got to use index washers to get them to try to fall in the place of where they have to be. It's a whole deal. Ryan says indexing is fun. You're correct. To get your index block set up, you're going to take, I would say, 3 or 4 hours, and then you can just speed the process up by doing it in your spare time. You don't have to worry about the engine or any of that stuff, and then you can do with the indexing washers. Moroso makes a couple other. Mr. Gasket makes them. They either have them for the taper seat or the washer, and then you can just use a lot less plugs to make them all work. But it's a tedious job for sure. Rick says, didn't we index the plugs on Mark's drag bike? Yes, we did. And that was back when we thought the indexing was really important for having the spark unshrouded towards the exhaust port. But well, also you're right. On Mark's motor, he had that big cylinder head on there that we had to make sure the gap was away from the intake valve, because that, believe it or not, that motorcycle I think had a 32 millimeter intake valve from factory. It was the old 2-valve KZ 900 1000 platform, and this guy Wizard Cylinder Heads, who at one time worked for Pro Stock Mike Cates down in Fort Lauderdale, he would open up the valve seat. I think we had a 55 or 60 millimeter, almost double the size intake valve on that cylinder head. So yeah, we definitely had to make sure the spark plug was nowhere near that intake valve, or it would have clipped it every time it opened up the valve. So that's the only real time it's worth it for indexing. Again, with all the time spent indexing, it just doesn't pay when we have such good ignition systems now. And now you go to your coil unplug cars where the coil is only firing one time per 2 revolutions instead of every spark event like a single coil would. The coils, and then you've got your smart coils with a module built into the coil, so the duration is adjusted per spark plug and stuff. You just don't need there's no gain in power. Let me say that. As long as you don't have an interference issue in the motor, there's no gain, so it just doesn't work. And like in Smurf is a fine example where you have a very large amount of nitrous going through the engine. We don't index, and every plug comes out looking the same. So as long as the tune-up is on point. So just, it's an old school thing that's kind of gone away. Like a lot of things, when back in the day we thought we really knew what was going on, and come to find out we didn't quite know as much as we thought we did. But, well, I see we went over a little bit tonight. I hope the time cert thing was useful, beneficial. I'll try to do a little bit better thing on that next week, where I actually show how to install them, and I'll try to make sure I touch base on all the different systems that are out there to do thread repairs. Also, what I wanted to get involved in is tap repair. The worst thing that can ever happen is you have a damaged thread, a damaged hole, and now you have to repair it, and then you snap a tap off in the hole. So I'm going to show you some tricks on that too. So we'll get that all set up for next week. Hopefully the Vega will be running, so I'll get a little running video on the Vega, and let you know where we are with the Oleynik and our whole trip going to Louisville the following week, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. So really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see y'all next week. So with that, see y'all later. See ya.